Welcome, everyone. Good morning from Washington, D.C. Welcome to the first European Space Agency World Bank Partnership info session. You will hear, of course, a lot about the European Space Agency today, but not just from the point of view of ESA, but how actually the World Bank is working with ESA by using information from space to make smarter decisions here on Earth. So first of all, here ESA, it's a great environment. It's a fantastic place full of passionate people. We have two familiar guests today from ESA. We will hear about them in a few minutes. It's a place where where innovation is at the forefront of every activity we do. And most importantly, ESA is an experienced, reliable, and trusted partner. And we will show during this event how we have been working together with ESA in the past 15 years and more here at the World Bank. So you will hear more details from the guest speakers today. In any case, ESA, I must many times what the Space Agency has to do with the World Bank. And in fact, Space Agency like ESA is building outstanding technology, is training astronauts to go back to the moon, it's building unbelievable machines, is managing ground stations to monitor and control satellites orbiting around the globe. It's training astronauts in the wildest places on Earth to then send them into space. But sorry, I didn't expect the audio. But last but not least, we are also sending satellites into space. This is from a couple of weeks ago, November 4th. Sentinel-1D, the radar satellite of the Copernicus fleet, has been launched into orbit with the new Ariane 6 rocket. And it's a satellite that we'll be using also here at the World Bank. So welcome again. My name is Fabio Chan. I'm the European Space Agency secondee to the World Bank. I'm based at the headquarters, hosted by GFDRR. And feel free to pass by, to stop by, or reach out if you have any question about the partnership. This info session is part of, let's say, a broader communication strategy that we just launched with the idea to get closer to World Bank staff, inform about the partnership, what we are doing, what are the opportunities. And it started with a new newsletter about the partnership. It was sent last week. If you haven't received it, here you have a QR code, just scan it. It will open an online form. You can simply put your email address and I will make sure that you're added in the distribution list for the next one. It's a quarterly newsletter with the idea to inform about what has happened, what is about to happen, what are the opportunities. Together with the newsletter, we also created an internal intranet page for the partnerships, so you can find more easily information about the partnership and also all the resources that you might need to work together with ESA under the partnership. There's the info session, like this one of today, also is a quarterly event. The idea is to have a more conversational space with you, with colleagues at the bank, so that we can inform you about the partnership, but also discuss with you about anything that you find interesting or topics that you would like to explore in more detail. And in fact, I'm asking you to share questions or comments, anything in the chat, and we will reply to those during this session, if possible. But most importantly, the idea is to create these info sessions based on your input as well, so that in the next time we can discuss things that you would like us to address in the next session. So feel free to participate and share your comment. And lastly, in this communication strategy, we will start a series of official events of the partnership. Of course, nothing new. Under the partnership, we always organized events, but the idea is to make it more regular and involve World Bank staff, colleagues more closely. We had the first event last week. We presented the World Settlement Footprint, which is one of the initiatives that are conducted under the partnership. If you missed the event, I will post in a minute the link to the event page. Key information about this: you can access this data, which is a global data set of urban areas. You can again scan the QR code. You can fill in some information, and we can give you access to the data set. And what we are asking in return is to give us some feedback so that we can finalize the product in a way that is closer to your needs. So let me stop here and let me introduce the first guest, Christoph Albrecht. It's a well-known face here at the bank. That's been in my position a few years ago, and now is back in Rome, leading the Global Development Assistance Program, which is the program that ESA is using to support financial institutions with the World Bank as a main partner. I forgot to mention that I took over this position about a year ago. Everything that I'm doing is built on what has been done by my predecessors, and Christoph was here about 10 years ago or so when he first started. So let's say we are hearing today, let's say, a sort of a representation of the past 10 years of the partnership, and all the work that has been done in the past 10 years allowed us to be where we are standing right now. So let me stop here, and over to you, Chris.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Fabio, first of all, can you hear me well, and can you also see the slides that I put on?
Yes, all good.
Perfect. So no, thanks. It's really nice to be here, and it sounds a bit crazy that you said 10 years ago I started. Indeed, it's almost 10 years ago. It was March 2016, so we almost reached the 10-year mark where I took that role in Washington that you have now. I should also highlight, however, that there was even somebody before me. So I don't know if there's anybody online who still remembers that one, but there was Anna Bushikowska, who had the role between, I think it was around 2011 to 2015. So indeed, we have had almost 15 years ESA inside presence at the World Bank. So this is quite remarkable, I have to say. And there has been a lot of evolution in how we address the partnership, how we implement and co-design the partnership. But I think more on that a little bit later. So first of all, I have already been introduced, so we can dive into the program, the GDA program, a bit later. But Fabio asked me to highlight a little bit what actually is the European Space Agency. For those of you who have maybe not yet engaged with us in so much detail, or even if you have engaged with us, you might not be fully aware what ESA as a space agency does beyond the work we do with you guys in the World Bank. So I just, wanted to give you a little bit of a teaser, so to say. So ESA as a space agency is, even in the space agency community, not, let's say, your usual suspect, because most space agencies in the world are one nation national space agencies. So that includes NASA, that includes, let's say, the Indian Space Research Organization, the Japanese Space Agency, the Australian Space Agency, the Canadian Space Agency, you name it. These are all one nation space agencies. Whereas we, as the European Space Agency, indeed are a collective agency. We have currently 23 member states. We are spread all across Europe. We have centers and establishments all over Europe. what you see here. Actually, the headquarters are in Paris, but the main Earth Observation Center, where I am based, Alex is based, and I would say the bulk of colleagues that work on Earth observation applications are based, is in Esrin, so that's in Frascati, just outside of Rome in Italy. We have an annual budget of about close to 8 billion euros. So this is the comparison is always nicely made with the reference to one cinema ticket per European per year. So it that involves a lot of different activities. So, and I'll get back to that in the next slide. However, I wanted to still also highlight that whereas we have the main establishments spread all over Europe, I mentioned headquarters and Esrin as two examples, we do have a presence also in North America. We have the so-called ESA Washington office, which is indeed just a couple of blocks away from MC building, World Bank. And it's a very small office. It's mainly established to handle relationships and external relations with North American entities like NASA, US government relations, etc. But formally, actually, Fabio is also associated with that office, even though he is seconded to the World Bank. So we have a presence also there. So let me move on. So I mentioned that we have a lot of member states. So we have indeed 23 full member states and a number of associate members as well. So the 4 associate members are European countries that have, you could argue, not yet reached the full level of maturity to be a full member, but they are on the path towards becoming a full member. And then we have one long-standing cooperating state, which is Canada. So you might wonder, why is Canada part of the European Space Agency? But that obviously has historical reasons. And we work very closely with them. They indeed contribute to ESA budget and participate in ESA programs almost as a normal member state. I mentioned that we do a lot of things beyond Earth observation. Indeed, we are active across every area of the space sector. And in the next slide, you will see what are the directorates that ESA has. But quite a few numbers are quite impressive. So we have launched more than 100, launched and developed more than 100 different satellites since ESA was established, and almost 300 distinct launches in fact from Kourou, which is the European spaceport in French Guiana. So if I say every area of the space sector, you see it here highlighted. So we have, anything from human space flight to telecommunication, navigation, space safety, space transportation, space science, of course, and last but certainly not least, Earth observation. So Earth observation, the Directorate of Earth Observation Programs, is our home where we are all affiliated with, and which is the directorate in ESA that boosts the partnership we have in place with the World Bank and other international financial institutions. So if we look at Earth observation, and this is a slide that some of you may have seen already, this is all the ESA developed Earth observation missions. I obviously don't expect you to look at all the individual satellites, but we have 3 different streams. We have the science missions. So these are really new types of technologies that are first time put in space, tested to see if this actually works, with the clear goal to deliver added value to science, be it on climate science, on all kinds of different science. Then we have the Copernicus stream, which is really the powerhouse of satellite Earth observation globally, you could argue. It's a European Union owned and funded program, but largely delegated and implemented through the European Space Agency. So that is the program that hosts all the Sentinel satellites, which Fabio highlighted one at the beginning. And also, this is not just Sentinel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., but it also already highlights the next generation Sentinel missions, and also new sensors that have kind of matured from initially being tested from a scientific perspective to become an operational sensor. And then the third line is the meteorological satellites, which is a fully operational stream that is largely implemented by EUMETSAT in terms of the application. So this is a dedicated agency that was kind of created once that field, that domain had reached a level of maturity. So ESA is still developing the satellites, but then hands over the operations and the applications to EUMETSAT. So Copernicus is really the one that I would say is the most relevant one for global development and for you in the World Bank. So what you see here is just an overview on the Sentinel fleet of satellites, Sentinel-1 to 6. And this creates really an avalanche of data, you could argue. We currently distribute around 350 terabytes of data every day. This is the distribution, but the generation of new data is roughly, I think, 50 terabytes per day, new data. And all of this is completely full, free and openly accessible, which has proven to be a complete game changer for development. You see here how such a mini constellation works. So these are two Sentinel satellites that work in tandem, Sentinel-2, in fact. So this is an optical sensor that works as a constellation. And these two Sentinels, Sentinel-2A and B, together are able to observe the entire landmass of the globe every 5 days at 10-meter resolution. If we continue, here, this is the latest science sensor that was launched earlier this year, which raises a lot of interest in different parts of the World Bank, the biomass sensor. So it's the first time that actually we will be able from space to look through the entire forest canopy and collect info on where carbon is stored, and that will be ideally applicable to a lot of different programs and instruments and mechanisms that the bank puts in place with client countries. So all of this to just conclude that we are really in an era now where we collect so much data about our planet that we can really almost start feeling the pulse of the planet. And you could argue that there is no more justification also for non-experts to not use that type of data, because it is clearly valuable for a lot of the processes in global development. So I think that we are all, or a lot of us, believe in data. So not just in the guts, and we are there to deliver that data and derive insights and solutions, build solutions together with you guys to address the challenges and operational problems that you have. To just move on, 2 more slides, I think. So what do we do with the data as a space agency? So we don't just create the satellite or develop the satellite, launch it, and then have it in space and archive and distribute the data. We do try to work very strongly on delivering actionable information and deriving insights from those data sets. So this obviously addresses climate, environmental aspects. We develop green solutions for society, but also do a lot of disruptive innovation and business support and commercialization of space as well. So this is to support policies from local to international level. Obviously, we have to do a lot of this through building strategic partnerships, and this is exactly what we're doing together with the World Bank. So maybe just as a segue, I think then I will stop. To take us from the ESA overarching or global view to what we do with the bank. I mentioned partnerships. So working with the bank is really something that is very close to our heart. Me personally, obviously, I was also working at the bank before joining ESA. And we, as a space agency, we don't have the mandate to, let's say, operationally roll out Earth observation services in developing countries. We don't have the mandate to substitute for operational services that the bank could deliver or co-design with the client. But we are here to help you guys do it better, to demonstrate the impact, the value, and then work with you to make this a sustainable approach. So if you look a little bit at the history that Fabio mentioned, going back now to 2008 when we started working with the bank, we can summarize the approach with those 5 A's. So traditionally, in development, the availability and accessibility of satellite Earth observation data was the main problem. So there was sparse access. It was difficult to process, to deal with the data. And as I mentioned before, the Copernicus program really has changed that. So now it's very easy to access. There's a lot of data available for most of the problems you may face in the different development thematic domains. Copernicus data can be at least the first entry point. So in our partnership, we focus on the 3 A's on the right, raising further awareness about what satellite Earth observation can do. This we have been doing now for 15 plus years with the original initiative called EO World. Then we need to increase the acceptance level in the decision makers, in the task teams, in program management, etc., to really adopt those types of services. So the acceptance level involves building concrete capacity, both in the bank teams and in the countries. And we I would say, embarked on that specifically through the EU4SD initiative, which started 2016. And now with the GDA program, we try to go even a step further to foster full adoption in operational mechanisms in the countries, for the countries to maintain these services themselves, and also to kind of then stimulate growth of local digital economies. And for that, we have to go even beyond capacity development for them to use the services, but actually do skills transfer for counterparts in the countries to do it themselves in the long run. So this slide summarizes what I just kind of highlighted, the history of the partnership in just one slide. We started with EO World 2008, then went to EU4SD 2016. Currently, we have GDA as the programmatic instrument in place to support the partnership. And we are now, in fact, in less than 2 weeks, we have our big ministerial council meeting at ESA, where the next programmatic cycle is defined. And we will actually evolve GDA through a new programmatic framework, which is called Earth Action, but maybe more on that a little bit later. So I would probably, with this now, hand over back to you, to Fabio.
Thanks so much, Chris. And I hope it's clear for our audience the evolution of this partnership, and from where we started and how the programs evolved, also based on data availability and availability of technology to analyze the data and deliver useful product to the bank. I think this evolution also allowed us to learn from each other, from the two institutions, so that we are able to work together in a better way and deliver more impactful insights. As I said at the beginning, I wanted to have these two special guests today. Chris is one of them, to give you a little bit of perspective of what has happened from the past till today and how the program evolved. So let me introduce you the next guest, who is, let me share my screen again quickly. I hope you can see. So we have Alex Chenet, who is also a very familiar face here at the bank. I know that many of you knows him. Alex has been in my position until a little bit more than a year ago. And as I said also before, all the work I'm doing now is also based on what has been built first by Chris and then by Alex. So I wanted to ask Alex to give us a perspective of his experience here as he's a second year at the bank, and how he saw things, let's say, changing, developing in working together with the bank. Alex, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Fabio. Hi, everyone. And good to see some familiar names in the audience. So indeed, as mentioned by Fabio, I was the successor to Chris, and of course then the predecessor to Fabio, and I was seconded to the World Bank from end of 21 until mid 24. So it was a very interesting time when I arrived, because we were just not, we had not exited yet fully the COVID period, and COVID brought a lot of attention to using remote technologies or technologies to do remote supervision, to do remote monitoring, to understand better what's happening underground. So let's say that gave and that put the spotlight on, to a certain extent, satellite technologies and how they could be used, especially in this context. What also happened in the meantime, especially when I arrived, and that has actually worsened since then, is the um, increased scrutiny, I would say, from donors, and also the more complicated donor environment, which was bringing much more attention to how can we better track interventions, how can we increase efficiency and impact, how can we better document this impact, and of course here again, those technologies have a role to play. So back then, with those two different trends, let's say satellite technologies and Earth observation was kind of at the center of the discussions. So when I arrived, coming back to what was just presented, I actually really focused on closing the EO4SD phase and progressively progressing and transitioning to the GDA phase with, if we had to summarize it or stereotype it, would be moving progressively from raising acceptance to really building adoption with complementary and coordinated interventions. Through GDA, during my time, more than 10 activities, 10, most of them being thematic activities, were launched, so on disaster resilience, on clean energy, on urban resilience, on agriculture, and so on. And through those activities, we were supporting at the time more than or around 70 World Bank projects. So as I was mentioning, what was really important during this time was to build through the GDA program an increased focus on a coordinated and complementary approach and integrated interventions with both ESA and World Bank complementing each other and coordinating each other in order to deliver impactful, let's say, applications and use of Earth observation for the projects and for the clients. And what that resulted in is the mobilization on the World Bank side of up to 19 million, let's say, dollars of worth of activities to complement with capacity building or complementary service development. And that also ended up all those interventions informing around 6 billion worth of lending operations. So it's a large impact we've had, again, through this tight and then coordinated approach. Something also worth mentioning when I mention those numbers is that it's not only been about this coordinated approach that informs the projects, but it's also been about components themselves and components that are based on or integrate Earth observation in the loan directly, right? And there's been also a lot of those to an amount that is around 700 million. So all this fed not only because here we're talking about the working level and the project level. This did not only feed the projects directly, but this fed also the strategic discussion between both institutions, the strategic discussion around the use of remote sensing and the use of Earth observation at the World Bank, and how can this be better integrated across the board, right? At the time, especially as those discussions happened, we had to navigate also a changing environment at the World Bank. There was a change in presidency during my time, with Ajay Benga being the new president of the World Bank. As I was mentioning, the donor environment also kind of worsened in itself, in a sense. And so there were a lot of discussions on how can we improve the use of those technologies. There's been an increase, and that's for sure, in capacities and capabilities at the World Bank. Also, an attention to recruiting people that are potentially data savvy at the World Bank. So there's been definitely an increase in capabilities. What has been there's been many, let's say, hurdles and limitations, but one of the main ones has been eventually potentially the fragmentation of this increase in capabilities. There is, of course, the ghost team that's been doing a great job, and there is other small islands in the agriculture GP, in the urban GP, in the energy global practice, SMAP. So that there's been those different islands that have started building skills, but there's been difficulties to address cross-cutting, let's say, challenges and to implement and use Earth observation at scale and to address cross-cutting, as I was mentioning, challenges. So that's something I wanted to insist on through this intervention. Otherwise, I think this time that I spent at World Bank has been very fruitful. We really managed to push the conversation forward in terms of the uptake of those technologies, in order to address internal needs at the bank, for example, to implement the CCDRs, the Country Climate Development Reports, or as I was mentioning, to inform the loans themselves. So there's been a lot of great examples and great success stories that I can remember and that you can find also online on our website, on the GDA website. Right. So yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to highlight. So I'll just stop here.
Thanks so much, Alex. And I hope it's people can appreciate the big amount of work that has been done in the past that allowed us to be where we are right now. Also hearing about the changes, COVID, change of presidencies, and so on. I think it's a very current topic, and a lot of changes are happening as of today. And um, part of the reason of this session is also to let you know how much we are also changing based on the changes that the institutions are going through. Let's jump a little bit more into the, let's say, the core of this event. So we had a very kind of long introduction, but I wanted you to know a little bit about the past of this partnership and how we ended up.
Did we just lose Fabio or?
Okay, yeah, my internet, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Okay, my office sometimes doesn't want me to stay connected. I was saying, let's go to the core of the event, and I wanted to ask Chris to jump in briefly and tell us a little bit about the status of GDA, the Global Development Assistance Program, and so let's say to get closer to what are the opportunities that you as World Bank colleagues have in working under the partnership.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. I hope you can still hear me.
Yes, I can hear you. You can hear me too?
Yes.
Did the thing start sharing, or do you still see me?
We are seeing your desktop now.
My desktop. Okay, then let me quickly go to this.
Okay, now we
So
see
you
the
can
website.
see the GDA website now. Okay,
Yes.
perfect. Yeah, so thanks again. I wanted to actually just give you a little bit of a snapshot, and Alex also already referred to the website. So this is really, we established the web portal, I would say, as the go-to mechanism to understand what's going on in the partnerships we have with the bank and other IFIs through the GDA program. So it's gda.esa.int. So I would certainly encourage you to check out this website and understand, you know, the latest things. We have highlights where we have all the stories and so presented. But I wanted to show you a few concrete new tools we launched most recently. So under impact, on top, you actually find our so-called impact dashboard. So what this impact dashboard does is it really, so it is maintained by the GDA monitoring and evaluation team, and it is a live view on what is going on in GDA. So you see here, you know, we currently supporting 128 distinct IFI projects. You can select based on your, let's say, thematic domain. Let's click on water resources. Then everything adjusts accordingly. You can understand which types of Earth observation capabilities are being implemented, in which phase of the IFI project cycle, or which stage the support was provided or the engagement took place. You can obviously select by IFI. So if you only want to see what's going on in the World Bank, we go out of here again. In the World Bank, we see we are working with World Bank, we're working on 69 different countries, 83 distinct IFI projects. So it's quite impressive. And you can also, if you want to understand actually which program or project exactly, you can go to the second tab down here on the IFI program or project overview and have the list here. So again, we select by, let's say, World Bank, and then you see based on which GDA activity, which World Bank project is being supported or which project we are engaging with. So this is just one of these tools. It's the GDA Impact Dashboard. All these, if we go back to the case study overview, all these 120 plus IFI projects that we are engaging with will also be illustrated on the so-called impact sphere. So if you go to the impact sphere, it's kind of a virtual 3D globe kind of environment. Let's go right in. So I would encourage you. The internet is quite slow at the moment, but I'd certainly encourage you to check it out yourselves. So on this globe, you will have all the different engagements showcased that we have. And then you can also dive in, for example, this one in Azerbaijan, linked or implemented through the disaster resilience activity. And it tells you in a, let's say, a bit more engaging format what was done in that activity, what is the impact that was generated, how were the clients involved, is there potential follow-up, is there uptake, plans, etc., etc. So the key impact takeaways. So you will have this eventually for all 120 plus stories. If I go back to the GDA website, another tool I wanted to highlight, which we also launched recently, is the GDA Knowledge Hub. So the GDA Knowledge Hub is a very interesting, and I think for the first time something like this has been put together. It's a dedicated portal that highlights what the Earth observation interface with development. So we have a repository that we call it library here of Earth observation capabilities, which you can dive in and understand a bit what is actually being done with the banks. But we also have a trainers area which helps you build your or customize dedicated EO capacity development content. And complementary to that, we have consultation rooms which it enables you to get in touch with real technical experts on a certain thematic domain. And before engaging with the experts in person, you actually engage with our AI assistant. Is a customized chatbot. We call it ChatGDA, which is trained on all the material that feeds into the GDA program, and also related associated content at the interface of EO and development. So in the long term, we actually want to further develop this ChatGDA to a tool that a World Bank TTL can use and ask simply, okay, how can I use Earth observation to better design my project in that area, and I want to do A, B, C, etc. So, but just to highlight maybe briefly the library context. So you have EO capabilities. You can, as we saw in other areas of the homepage, you can filter, for example, by thematic domain, let's say agriculture, and then you have all these different types of EO capabilities listed. You can find out more about it. If you click in it, you have the overview. You have what kind of data is usually used. And you also have use cases that are associated with it. For example, here's the agroclimatic resilience, a use case we understand as a subdomain of a thematic, let's say, a thematic domain. So in that regard, subdomain of agriculture. And then linked to that, we also have we can go back to the case studies, which are these engagements we already saw on the impact dashboard and also on the impact sphere. So feel free to explore. I wanted to show you those, maybe the last one, and I will not go in detail now, but we have another one. Another tool recently launched is the analytics and processing platform, the GDA APP. Quickly, got it. So this one lets you then play around with the data and actually do some processing yourself, or even integrate your own data and combine it. And if you're an advanced user, you can even do your own programming and processing in there. So I think that's pretty much what I wanted to show you. Maybe latest things. I also want to highlight one specific thing, which is the GDA program is currently the instrument that we are using to support the partnership. But obviously, the partnership between ESA and the bank is not just GDA. It is really, we can leverage anything that we are doing in ESA also through other programmatic vehicles. And we will also always try to kind of build also on R&D activities in ESA to take it forward and integrate it to the best extent possible. So one example is was already shown with the WSF. The WSF is not a dedicated activity under GDA, but we actually used GDA resources to take it to the next level. And we have a few others that are also related, I would say. We have a dedicated project on leveraging Earth observation for nature finance. We have a dedicated project on urban heat resilience, etc., etc. So all these kind of things we will try to bring together. And Fabio is really your focal point here, who has the overview on what's going on in ESA and what can be leveraged to the best way possible for which kind of World Bank activity. So I think I'll leave it with that at this point. So back to you, Fabio. Let me know if you want me to highlight anything else.
Thanks so much, Chris. I think it's a great overview. So you have, I posted on the chat all the links to the instruments that Chris showed. So in case you're not familiar with the work we are doing, you can find all the examples in the website. So that can give you, let's say, inspiration for what you can do together in the frame of the partnership. So as I mentioned, there are open opportunities to work together. So let me ask quickly Alex to mention about the program, the activity under GDA that is leading. Over to you, Alex.
Thanks, Fabio. So indeed, we have an activity called GDA Climate Adaptation and Finance that aims at collaborating and partnering with the climate funds, the Green Climate Fund, the Global Environment Facility, the Adaptation Fund, Climate Investment Fund, and finally, Fund for Responding to Loss and Damages. And of course, those institutions implement projects through their accredited or implementing agencies, including the World Bank. So we are currently actually implementing this activity, which means we're looking for specific projects. Oops, sorry, my camera. We're looking for specific projects that seek to receive or have received support from those climate funds, and to support those projects on integrating and further, let's say, adopting in the project or in benefit of the project Earth observation technologies. So if you're working or know of some of those projects, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to have a first discussion to see how we could collaborate. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Alex. And again, I posted the link in the chat. Maybe very last thing that I would like to ask you, Chris, if you can give us, before I go back to the summarizing and giving the latest information to our colleagues on how they can work with us. We mentioned the fact that things are changing, so they are changing a lot here at the bank, but ESA is also changing, and we reached an interesting time here under our program, the GDA program at the ESA side, because we will, you mentioned that before, we will start a new phase of the program very soon. So we are all ready to start working on it, start designing the new activities. So I think it would be great if you could give a few details on that, so that we give a sort of direction to our colleagues.
Absolutely. No, I mean, there is a lot of changes going on in the world, obviously. Geopolitical changes are influencing also the big agendas of agencies and institutions like ESA and the bank, right? So in our case, what it means is that ESA, for the very first time, is indeed embarking also on defense, the use of space for defense. So we have in our charter written, in the ESA charter, written that ESA is only allowed to work on activities for the peaceful use of outer space. So this charter is, I would say, not being questioned. It's not that ESA is becoming a military institution. However, there is a distinction being made between mere civil use and defense. So defense is seen as an act of not an act of aggression, hence remains within the realm of peaceful use. It's stretching it. I very much am aware of that, but it's a reality. So ESA will embark also on the use of space for defense purposes, and there is a lot of budget, obviously, as you can imagine there. And however, the influx of that budget to ESA and the potential reshaping of programmatic structures in ESA to accommodate that will certainly, or to a certain extent, impact the way ESA works also on the regular programs like environmental monitoring, climate, and the work we do on development cooperation. So we will have to see exactly how our member states decide on that. We have the Ministerial Council in less than 2 weeks, and then there will be more clarity on the new defense program, which is called European Resilience from Space. However, also on the side on development cooperation, and I mentioned the term Earth Action before, we are restructuring. We are restructuring to become more efficient and create more synergies. The whole idea there is to bridge the gap between R&D on the one side and then taking it forward to pre-operational level and fostering uptake from a demand-driven perspective on the other side. So in GDA, we have been sitting very much at that edge of pre-operational uptake. We are not doing R&D in GDA. And this way of working has resonated a lot with our member states. So they want to see actually more of that. And the concept that kind of evolved from it is called Earth Action, where GDA or the evolution of GDA through that new concept is quite a driving factor for how this large new program is being conceptualized. So we're talking about something like a $500 million or more euro program. And there, the way of working that we have adopted in GDA, meaning partnering with institutions, listening to requirements, co-designing, co-owning, and really also mobilizing not just the respective expertise, but also respective resources for operational uptake, is something that our member states want to see more and more, and this is what we will have in Earth Action. So the specific evolution of GDA, again, everything is still pending approval in the next 2 weeks, but we will try to become more efficient, or increasingly more efficient compared to what we have now. So we will try to look more at priorities. We, for example, at the moment in GDA, we have 12 thematic domains that we cover, and you will find them on the website. And we addressed essentially all of them equally, right? So we had an activity on each of those thematic domains, and each of it received roughly the same kind of resources and budget. So we will now look where are the big challenges, where is the biggest uptake potential, where do the bank teams and the clients push more for mobilization and for uptake for operations. So, we will try to become more efficient and even more demand and uptake oriented. I think this is a bit the message that I can give. And all of this is really, it really implies what I mentioned at the very beginning. So we as a space agency, we don't have the mandate to substitute for activities that are meant to be implemented by the World Bank. We are here to help you do new things or do your things better, right? So we are not a donor. We provide support, but that support is not supposed to be seen as simply a free resource. That support is meant to be seen as a stimulus to take something forward and create something together. And I think I leave it here because I'm aware we are quite over time already. So I hand back over to you, Fabio.
Thanks so much, Chris. And the last point is actually one of the most important, which is this is a partnership. We must work together. And I'm welcoming you to reach out. And if you have any ideas, suggestion, we are looking to work together and design activities also together. So let me share my screen for the last time. Okay, fine. It doesn't want me to share my screen anymore. I don't know what happened. Anyway, not so important. I wanted to just summarize and show you actually that we are working on a stronger governance of the partnership. We are finalizing it in these days, so I didn't want to share it officially, but I wanted to give you a reference. So that we will have a steering committee at the directors level, which is more giving the direction of the partnership, also giving inputs of where the bank wants to focus its activity in working together with ESA. At the same time, we are building a network of focal point. It was always here, but it's more formal, let's say, in a way. So the idea is to work closely with you in the different sectors so we can think together about activities, design the activities, collect the requirements that your sector, your team, your unit might have, so that we can have a more impactful partnership. In the very short term, what you can do, the main, let's say, activity I posted here in the chat right now, it's called the Fast EO Co-Financing Facility. So in the very short term, if you want to start working with us, that's the easiest solution we have at the moment. This requires co-financing, so you must have some resources to complement what we are providing through the partnership. But this could be a great start to work together if we are not doing that already, because this could give us the possibility to start, let's say, preparing for the next phase of the program that Chris was mentioning before. So from January, hopefully, we will start designing the next activities, and it would be fantastic to do it together with you, working very close together. I had another slide, but I don't know why my computer doesn't want to share slides anymore. So I can't really show you the list of open activities. So I wanted to give you an overview of what it's still possible to do, also beyond the what we call GDA FFF, the co-financing facility. Alex mentioned the climate adaptation and financing activity. We still have room, at least, for supporting another project. Under GDA Forest, you find all the information in our website under the core activities section. Under GDA Forest, we probably have space to support another project. Under GDA Public Health, we definitely have space for at least another project. I mentioned at the beginning the World Settlement Footprint. I shared in the chat also the link to the event page. There's still space to engage with us, to have access to the dataset and work together with us to finalize it and take it closer to your need. And very last thing, I mentioned that as part of this new initiative to communicate better, let's say more efficiently, what we do under the partnership, there is a list of events in the pipeline. So in January or February, we will have the full release of the World Settlement Footprint dataset. So stay tuned for that. But we'll also have other events related to GDA. So as some of the activities under GDA is concluded, we will organize events to share what has been done under the partnership, but also to, let's say, collect input from you to work together on what can still be done in the different sectors. So we will definitely have an event on GDA water and one on GDA transport. So stay tuned for that. You will know about it very soon. And I think that's, the very last thing is we are also working together with the new innovation department. There's a network of geospatial focal points and an activity focused on geospatial activities. And there's a series of events which is called Beyond Cool Tools. And we are also organizing soon an event with them on space agencies to communicate internally at the bank on what space agency does, not only ESA, but also space agency in Africa, in the development world, and see how we can work together with them and support them under our activities at the bank. I haven't seen any question in the chat, but let me remind you, the next info session will be in about 3 months. We will design it also based on your input. So feel free to reach out also via email if you have any topic that you would like us to discuss, something that you want to know more about, technology, applications, anything, feel free to write me, and I would be very happy to include it for the next session. If there are no questions from the audience, I think we can, and I don't see anything in the chat. I give you a few extra seconds. Let me thank Chris and Alex for supporting me in this event to give a an historical perspective, so to say, of the partnership. And thanks for joining us, and hope to see you next time.